My name is Annika Smith.
My name is Abigail Brown.
I have been a member of Advent since
it was started back in 2007.
Shortly after joining, we had a baby, and even though we were very new and people didn't really know us yet, people were there for us in so many ways, more ways than I can tell you in a few minutes.
So much of my life is centered around Advent. Most of my friends here in DC, my wife and I met at Advent, we married at Advent, we've had our 3 children at Advent. So this has been a home. It was actually around the time when Advent was getting started, I went through a time where I had felt disconnected from faith. And it was a couple friends from Advent who, I didn't actually tell them, hey, I'm really struggling, I'm kind of going through this crisis. But we got together and we would read the Psalms. And their faithfulness turned out to be a tonic for the soul. That came through Advent. I'm here as a committed Christian today because of Church of the Advent.
Advent hospitality to me almost feels palpable, because when I came in, and then more so when my wife, who's an immigrant, came in, she was just greeted like she had kind of always been here, and she has always remarked about how important that was to her. And I've tried to do the same thing when I see people that I don't know here, just go up and say, I'm glad you're here, tell me a little about what's your story, who are you?
When I was baptized at Church of the Advent, my mom, my dad, and my brother all sat in a pew together, and that had never happened before. So just to be able to share, to invite my family to my church home, words can't really express what that meant to me. I think Advent just embodies that spirit of hospitality and come as you are.
For me, Advent has been the place where I am known and loved more than anywhere, I think, on this earth. Advent hospitality is unfailingly generous and faithful, and it's honest and so lovely and so unvarnished, and for which I am so incredibly grateful, particularly as someone who has lost a lot of family and struggles with feeling like, where is my family? And that being one of the key existential questions of my life.
We felt at home because I'm very left-brained in the way I process spirituality, and Lisa's very right-brained. And I think that we found a mix of that in the preaching.
The whole idea of home sits at the very heart of the gospel. We believe that God came as Jesus Christ to make his home with us, and that his purpose and promise is that one day he's going to turn this world into an eternal home. We want to be a kind of church that is able to welcome people in graciously, no matter where they've come from. We want to be a church where people are encouraged to grow and to become mature in their faith. And we want to be the kind of place that is regularly and joyfully sending people out to love God and serve other people wherever God calls them. And by God's grace, we've been able to do that for over the last 10 years here in Washington, D.C. From the beginning, our goal was never just to build a great church. It was to see DC become a great city and a great home for all the people who live here. Because that's what the gospel does. When the gospel spreads throughout a city like DC, you see loneliness eradicated because deep friendships are formed. You see things like homelessness begin to go down because people become more concerned for the plight of their neighbors. You see race relations improved. You see neighborhoods become more vitalized. And of course, our greatest hope of all is that the day will come when every man, woman, and child in this city has heard and responded to the good news of Jesus Christ. We long for the day when this city is no longer known as a center of human ambition and power and influence, but when this city is known as a place where Jesus is Lord. But all of these things require a long-term, stable, committed presence for multiple generations. And up until now, we've not been able to have that kind of stable presence. We've had 6 different locations in our short life here in DC, and that's very destabilizing.
In our experience now with Advent, we've been in 3 different buildings, and I always notice it's a little bit hard for my kids to just enter into a new space, even though it's the same people.
Every time we move, we lose momentum, And there are numerous ministry opportunities and programs and partnerships that we've had to say no to simply because we don't have the space. We believe that this is the time for us to seek and secure a long-term permanent home where we can continue to welcome people in and to see them grow up and then to send them out to love and serve God. It would give us an opportunity to partner with other ministries. It would give us an opportunity to learn the needs of the community where we settle, and then to be able to actively seek to bless not just the people in our church, but everybody in that community. Having a permanent space creates a huge array of possibilities that simply did not exist before.
Fundamentally, buying a building is not about just buying a space where we can sort of hunker in and just enjoy each other. It's actually building a space from which we can go out and be in the city and engage with the city and have a place in the city where we can bring the good news of the gospel to others, where we can develop deeper relationships, where we can offer a space of welcome to those who might need it.
If we can say, you know, we'll be here next year and the year after, it's all the more reason, I think, to develop roots and to knock on neighbors' doors and to let them know that we're committed to the community around us.
There are so many different ways that we can't serve right now because we don't have the place to offer. We don't have office space, we don't have a meeting space to offer, we don't have classroom space to provide for an educational program. We don't have space to serve a meal for people who are hungry. And just as Jesus came into the world to save sinners, a building enables us to touch so many more people in a long-term way and introduce them to Jesus Christ.
Advent, between the sermons and again the friends and the retreats and just the time that I've spent here, has had a way of helping me to grow in ways that I didn't know I needed growth.
We need a physical space the same way a family needs a house, to be able to open the doors wide and invite people to the table. And I'm really hopeful for the vision for that and can't wait to see it.
One of the verses that we've always loved in our church is Psalm 68:6, which says that God settles the lonely in a family. And we want to be that kind of family. And so we are asking our members and our supporters to support us in this effort so that we can be that kind of family for generations to come.